Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sue Fasciani with Tiger Home and Building Inspections. I'm in the marketing department and I'm here with Kara Golden. She's director of marketing, and Joe De Laurentiis. Thank you so much for coming, for preparing a house for sale, less stress, faster sale. Before we get started, I do want to let you know that we will be taking questions through the chat button. So you can go ahead and chat those questions in, and Kara will handle those as we get to the question slides. And before we go on, I do want to introduce you to Joe. If you don't know Joe, he is principal of Tiger Group. Joe's been licensed as a home inspector for 27 years. He holds a supervisory pest control license, the wood destroying insect, as you all know it, and is also a member of the American Society of Home Inspectors and has an extensive background in new construction, remodeling, and just brings a vast of knowledge to all his inspections and today's presentation. He stays pretty busy too, managing our inspectors. We have 22 home inspectors throughout the state of Connecticut. We are a family-owned business. We've been around since 1992, as Kara just mentioned to you. We're celebrating 30 years this year, so very happy and proud of that. We perform commercial assessments, residential inspections throughout the state of Connecticut. As I mentioned, we're out there 7 days a week. We know you're working 7 days a week, and we want to be available for you and your clients. We not only do statewide, but we border towns in New York, Mass, and Rhode Island. Along with that, our home inspections, we do include the wood destroying insect inspection for free, because all of our home inspectors are licensed to perform this. So we want to make sure you get that included in your home inspection for your clients. And we have a certified staff. They are fully trained and certified for electronic monitors, for radon air testing, as well as taking samples for the well water quality and quantity. Also keep in mind, and it has been really popular. I know last year our mold assessments were up. We do have a mold division, so we're doing those assessments and testing. So if you ever have a client that might be concerned, keep that in mind. And also our inspectors, many of them have specialties. So if you have any questions or specific need for one of your clients, feel free to reach out to Kara or myself, and also our staff in the office. Extremely knowledgeable about all our inspectors, so they can help you with that as well. And without further ado, then I'm going to turn this over to Joe, but please do make sure you stay to the end for our raffle. We are giving $100 off a seller's inspection for one of your listing clients.
Thank you, Sue. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for logging in and attending. Just quick review. We are getting past, I'm going with staying positive here, all of the COVID protocols. Our mission throughout all of this pandemic has been to keep our clients, they're representing realtors, and of course all of our staff safe out there in the field. Also, most importantly, we continue to talk about these things to make sellers comfortable with having people in their homes, with getting over the hump to list that property as it may be this winter. I think everybody's good with the latest variant having moved past and ready to list in that regard. CTR is still recommending limited attendees to inspections and showings and things. I'm not seeing that in practice every day as things start to open up some more. We still carry all the necessary personal protection equipment. Masks and booties and such are worn on a daily basis. And we have a quick discussion with our clients, maybe if the seller's there and their realtors, about how people would like to proceed with wearing masks or not and such. Again, just making it such that everybody's comfortable with the process and can move forward well. Today, we're going to touch on the importance of home maintenance in regards to preparing houses for sale. Some of that may be things that you can work with your sellers on doing on their own. Others would absolutely come from the benefits of a seller's preparation inspection. And I think a lot of this plays into setting expectations both for your seller clients and for your buyer clients on some of these procedures and practices that go along with the home inspection portion of your contract steps, as they may be. About 50% of the home inspection findings that we come across on a daily basis are deferred maintenance, easily fixable items by a competent homeowner and or perhaps a handyman. Many others that we come up with are questions for the seller, historical items. Looks like there was a history of termite treatment here, although I'm not seeing any activity and or damage. There are drill holes or perhaps a bait system in place. That kind of information to have handy for people is extremely important. Some of these homes that are poorly maintained slowly throughout the process of being at the home inspection and or if they weren't allowed to be there reading the report, some buyers can become concerned, disenchanted, perhaps even overwhelmed with some of this information that frankly could have been quite easily fixed and taking aside any of those potential significant deficiencies that may or may not be uncovered. Today, we'll talk about some of these common inspection issues and perhaps some of the fixes for them, how to avoid some of the surprises that can delay closings or impact the sale. And speaking specifically towards our current market, right? The first reaction of some is, why would a seller need to prepare their house? It's a strong seller's market now. As soon as we get that listing, there'll be people lining up to buy it. All of that is true. However, you know much better than I, because I'm not a realtor. The name of the game today is taking all of those quick offers that come in and sorting through which one is the strongest and preventing perhaps somebody from going under contract and then not completely following through with that, therefore taking that hot listing off the market for a period of time, whereas others may have gone on to something else. The benefits of having a home inspected and preparing it for sale, in other words, having a seller's inspection ahead of time, we'll focus on those as well in the latter part of the presentation. So we kind of assembled from conversations with our home inspectors and some reports and my personal experiences, a list of 12 common inspection issues. And as I read through these, or you read through them while they're on the screen, you're going to say, oh, that's no big deal. That's easily resolved, or that probably isn't going to impact a transaction. And they may well not, but we never know, as many of you have experienced, what the quote hot button or concern might be for an individual buyer. Always reducing the conversation or questions or number of things is beneficial. So the first one on the top left is everyday and very common outdated service records or service records that are not available for equipment. One of the things that came in when we were advertising this presentation as a question from a potential attendee was, what about these items that are older, as we phrase it, operating at or near the end of their service life? That's a quote from our licensing standard. I can say with a lot of confidence that when we run into this older equipment and the service records are in place and up to date, it's an easy way to show a buyer client, look at this, while this is a 25-year-old piece of equipment, it's nearing the end of its expected life, it's been well maintained. Therefore, you can expect that you'll maximize its useful life. And here's the recent service record, somebody you can call to get an opinion on that. So that's an easy one. Gutters are a consistent issue. They're dirty, they're overflowing, they're loose from the house. Moisture damage trim always presents to us as inspectors and tends to be an easier fix. Foundation and floor cracks. No matter how much we try to explain that these may not be structural or a support issue with people, many buyers get concerned with these. And frankly, some of you have probably seen some of the prices that a buyer may get if they call someone to repair these cracks. An injection type seal of an 8-foot crack, can run anywhere. I've seen in the market today, $600 to even $1,000 to repair a crack that, maybe a seller could have done on their own. Infestations and records, people's reactions to mice. My opinion is everybody's got them, but not everybody knows it or admits it. Take a person who's extremely worried about or scared of rodents and or maybe coming out of a city into their first home, you probably get a completely different reaction. Obviously, water and moisture entry is always a big concern. Radon testing, garage door operation we come up with every day. I like to cite the examples of these things. We all have these little idiosyncrasies, including myself in our house, that we kind of live with. It's on the list for next weekend, and something better comes along than fixing your garage door or that loose hinge, as it may be on your bedroom door. Glass panes on windows, light bulbs are very simple things to address. And as I said, they can lead to raising questions. How do you know the light's going to work when I put a bulb back in it? Well, as an inspector, I really don't. And I don't carry bulbs around to replace these. We run under the assumption that that's the simple fix, but some buyers maintain with some reservation as to what's the outcome. So some simple advice of what sellers can do on their own. These are going to be a little bit repetitive of what we just said, but collecting those service records and repair records is extremely important. I will say even addressing those things that are in the service records is equally as important. This week I was in a property and there was some moisture on top of a nice within 2 or 3 year old high efficiency wall boiler. And it was all damp on top of it with a little towel around it and stains. And I pulled it down and realized that the exhaust vent condensation was leaking. And lo and behold, I read the service record. And for the last 2 years, they've been trying to fix this problem. The last service record was, need a different coupling, need to replace the exhaust, and it was never addressed from a year ago. So taking care of some of these things ahead of time is beneficial. Maintenance items we talked about, going through that list, painting the front door, something some of you probably use as listing tips. How do you approach the house? What's the condition of that trim and paint job in those areas? And nothing is more beneficial as an inspector than creating some positives. Unfortunately, our job is surrounded around, as we're directed from the state, finding significant deficiencies in things that are at or near the end of their service life. That's, from our licensing. So when there's an opportunity to talk about positives, we train our inspection staff to do so. And one of the easy ones is if there's a sales binder, perhaps on the kitchen table, as an example, I can literally go through that with someone and say, oh, look at this. Here's the record from the roof replacement 6 years ago. Look, they used the right shingles and the receipt shows all the details. Things like service records and those history of updates, perhaps a prior water test or radon test or some such shows that the homeowner has an intent to take care of the house, and that new buyer is confident in moving in to something that someone took care of. Moving on to some of those things that we may identify in a seller's preparation inspection, or that a seller, may do otherwise by having some contractors in, having that HVAC serviced. Other systems such as generators are a common question. Whole house generators specifically, how do we know it works? When was it serviced? I mentioned the foundation and floor cracks, the garage door operation. Those things would require a contractor, as would extermination. Maybe some of these walkway and driveway repairs we run across. And of course, if they're going to test for radon, our staff, as Sue mentioned, is nationally certified to do those tests appropriately. Some may have some reservation from a homeowner getting a little test kit from a big box store or some such. So moving into the seller's preparation inspection, who can benefit from these? This question has come to us over the years. why would my clients want to do this? Which clients specifically can benefit? Long-term occupants, maybe 12 years plus, just as a starting point number. People who haven't been involved in a real estate transaction in some time. Many who bought their house a long time ago don't have any recollection of the inspection process, if they even had one at all, a long time ago. Estate sales tend to be one of our leading clients for sellers inspections. They just don't know anything about the property. They want to know if there's some potential snags in the transaction. They perhaps are going to make some improvements or repairs to the property. So we do a lot of work for families who have received a property through estate. Rehab properties, we have some relationships with contractors who rehab properties to sell them or flip properties. It really is a great process. We go in and do an inspection for them when they're purchasing, and then we do another inspection for them when they're getting the house ready for sale. They've had multiple trades in, most likely. They've definitely done the bathrooms and kitchens and such over, but maybe they didn't have that furnace serviced. Maybe they didn't upgrade some insulation in the attic or inspect for insects initially before purchase. So that's been a great working relationship as well. Sellers in a strong market. Again, some would say, why does the seller need this now when the house is going to sell easily? I repeat this part of it, that them knowing what potential snags may come along is beneficial to have that house ready for a smooth transaction once all those buyers come knocking with their offers. Acknowledging today's market conditions. Excuse me, I don't need to tell all of you some of these challenges, right? There's limited time on the market. We do see reduced contingencies in some offers, probably little to no room for negotiations. Which was beneficial. And some of it is high stress, high pressure, right? Some people are literally seeing a property for, as I hear, 20 minutes or so, and then writing an offer. And a lot of times we meet them in the driveway and start to have a discussion with them about the house, and they're just very anxious to get back in and see what they bought for a second time. The outcome of sellers' preparations, the house can be better presented, those conditions that may or may not be there. The seller can select a best offer from the folks that are coming in if they've presented the information as they've prepared the house, conditions that they simply acknowledge. We'll talk about this a little bit more. By no means does a seller need to fix some of the things that we've found, but they can certainly control the situation by preparing for some of the circumstances that they've found out through the seller's inspection. Recently, to speak towards those that are not having inspections or removing the inspection contingency from offers, I had a client last summer who went in with an aggressive offer without an inspection contingency, and then had me come afterwards. As they announced, they've bought houses all over, corporate guy who's been transferred around the country, and they knew the drill. They knew the risks in going in without an inspection contingency. So therefore, about a month after they moved in and got settled, they wanted to have an inspection and kind of have a list of things, be it maintenance or other deficiencies, to catch up on. The unfortunate part of this is they came away without the ability to do some of the research and ask some of the questions that we do come up with at home inspections. There was evidence of a prior underground oil tank on the property. The fuel lines were left in place. They didn't know where to turn to find out more of that information. They were hoping that they could get back to the sellers to find out, was it taken out during their tenure, or was it long before them? And does anybody have the records for their future sales? Termite damage was identified, not extensive, but some evidence of treatment as well. And as you've all heard before, the next best step is to find out when was that treated? Is there a warranty still in place? You know, what company treated it and things like that. What was the infestation perhaps? And these folks didn't have any ability to find any of that information out. There was an active and fairly extensive rodent infestation with some exterminators traps in place. And again, they don't have any history of that one. Lastly, there was a cracked fireplace, a flue tile, and that was an important feature of this older home that the buyer was interested in having. Of course, now they got to unwind that and try to figure out how to fix that fireplace flue. Any questions on that information that we've gone through so far?
So I do have a couple questions, and I think you may answer them in our upcoming segment. But do I need to disclose the information if I do a seller preparation inspection and get the information ahead?
So I didn't give my normal disclosure when we start. I am by no means an attorney, so I can't definitively answer what you have to disclose. My answer as a home inspector and you know, someone who's filled out and received disclosures is I think you only have to answer the questions that are on the disclosure. And frankly, at some point during the home inspection process, the buyers are going to find this stuff out anyway. So what you have to disclose is regulated by the questions on the disclosure, and putting forth this information is beneficial for all parties, quite frankly, just to prevent these bumps in the road.
I have a question.
May I interrupt? If you see it and you acknowledge it, you should disclose it and ask the seller to acknowledge it on her disclosure form, just for everyone's protection.
I agree. And as I said, this stuff's going to come out at some point in time anyway. The best I can say is managing these conditions is beneficial as a seller ahead of time rather than in the heat of the transaction, or even, you know, what about after closing when somebody finds it out and it wasn't disclosed, right?
Most sellers buy something, or I mean, most buyers buy it with the warranty, and there's like a year to file a claim. So it's best just to disclose it.
Agreed. Thank you for your input.
Thanks,
you.
Joe. You
Questions,
can move on.
Oh, I thought you had more than one. Okay.
Oh, I just actually had one that popped up. Do you provide underground searches for buried tanks?
We don't at Tiger personally, but I do have a great referral for you. Out of Milford is Absolute Tank Testing. They specifically only deal with searches and or testing of grave sites where tanks might have been removed and things like that. We've had a good relationship with them over the years.
Thank you.
And I'll just add to that, for any services, we do have a contractor network on our website. And of course, Sue and I are always a resource for you as well when looking for outside vendors and contractors for inspection concerns.
Great, thank you. So let's run through a brief scenario here to compare some situation where they had a seller's preparation inspection and another comparative where they did not. We'll talk about the not handy family through creation here of our presentations. We have some fun with these things. We got a couple migrating from the city, first-time home buyers, young professionals. They don't own any power tools. They're not intending to do a lot of this work themselves. So we have a seller's preparation inspection for the property that they're coming to look at. The first thing to note here in this slide, you'll see some conversation about the roof. Take a look at the main house roof. Looks fantastic. Newer roof there. We're going to focus on this little side sunroom roof in our discussions just for visual representation for you. One of the things that came up in the seller's preparation inspection was some carpenter ant activity and damage. It didn't look like this in the process of the carpenter coming to make repairs and the exterminator identifying the location of the nest. They had to take some things apart, and you can see some of the evidence that was uncovered there. Our report recommended repairs to the damage as well as treatment of the carpenter ants. This is the side roof. Doesn't look like that nice new main roof did. This roof is near the end of its useful life. It was reported as a potential for cleaning it and making some repairs, and recommended to the seller to also, if suitable, have the roofer write a letter with a cost estimate for what it may cost in the future to replace it. So in other words, improving it or making it work better, look better for the sale, but of course, including, here you go, Mr. Buyer, Mrs. Buyer, this is what you may need to spend in the coming years to fix this roof. There was a bathroom addition put in and some new framing and plumbing, as is not uncommon in the construction industry. The plumber came back and in order to get the pipes pitched right, drilled through some of the framing. Really not an extremely difficult repair to resupport some of these joists with a perpendicular small beam, as it may be. So we made recommendation for that either to be repaired or to again obtain those cost estimates to present to a buyer. You can imagine the opposite will be, what does a buyer think who's never owned a home or is not handy, as these folks' last name would say, when they start talking about framing that was improperly drilled or support concerns. Some maintenance things always come up. I shouldn't say always, in a lot of cases, cleaning gutters and extending downspouts to help with some basement moisture that was identified. Repair painted area and paint areas of moisture damage. Garage door opener safety did not function properly, just needed a service by a garage door company. In a bathroom, something that some of us may live with in our homes. I know I just replaced after 15 years the vanity that my boys use in their bathroom, but some of these little leaks and some apparent visible mold in there. It was identified here in many ways to fix that, but the reaction of a buyer may differ. And a couple miswired outlets as well on the electric side of things were identified. So this proactive seller chooses to take action and address these things. You can see the carpenter ant damage was repaired and treated there, $1,300 total. The roofing was cleaned and repaired for $500. And they received the $2,500 quote with a letter to put in that seller's binder. Garage door was serviced. The vanity leak, they went ahead and got a new vanity and installed that instead of bothering to clean up the leak stains and potential mold concern. Had their son put that in. Some electrical repairs and some varied maintenance type things for another $150. So they were smart. They spent a lot of money. They put almost $3,000 into preparing the house for sale and preventing any of these things from becoming snags in their transaction. Any questions or comments on that portion?
I do have a question, Joe. It's one of your favorite questions. One of the situations that causes realtors a lot of angst is when the inspector tells the buyers the roof is at the end of their useful life or the furnace is at the end of its service life. Is there any other wording that would be helpful to realtors when negotiating for our buyers on inspection issues? More specifics. The sellers will come back with, well, it's still working. The roof is not leaking, but the buyer gets freaked out by these comments.
Is a larger question. Let me start with letting you understand where this verbiage comes from. I mentioned earlier in the presentation that our licensing specifically tasks us with identifying components of the home that are at or near the end of their service life, and also those that are significantly deficient. So we'll focus on the at or near the end of the service life. The state of Connecticut is telling us, the Consumer Protection Department, that that is what we have to inform people of for the properties they're purchasing. So that's why we do that. As far as negotiations, on your side of things, frankly, in contracts, there are no rules to the road, as you all know better than I do. And I think that's where a lot of this struggle comes from. The seller's opinion is a roof is supposed to stop leaking. It's not leaking now, so I don't have to fix it. Contractually, that's their opinion and they're entitled to it. A buyer says, I didn't know I was buying a house with a 25-year-old roof that is worn out and has a potential for leaking in coming years. No one's going to be able to predict when it's going to leak, but they certainly didn't understand that that's what they were purchasing. As a sidebar, perhaps if that seller had maybe acknowledged the age or had a seller's preparation inspection, that buyer would have known what they were purchasing, where that may be the beginning of the deficiencies. So I think in our reporting, we try to present it when the conditions allow, that this component is functioning. However, it is at or near the end of its service life. And that's to say to the people, yes, this furnace is 30 years old. Typical expected service life is 25. It's been serviced, it's working fine. You just need to acknowledge its age. So I don't have a good answer for you on the negotiation part. If people think that a roof only needs to be replaced when it leaks, they're far from correct. Roofs need to be replaced when they're worn out before they start to leak. And a furnace, one should consider making that replacement before it's, February 17th and 10 degrees out, because they're going to have to pay emergency fees in order to get that furnace replaced. So I think it's smarter to make a proactive replacement for some of these things. Is the seller required to do it? There are no rules to that road, and it's not in your contract. So I don't know how that they could force that.
I had that same issue with a client last summer. His system broke and it was central air. He had one of those heat systems. So it was separate because it not only air conditioned them, it heated them in the winter.
Yep.
And he had to upgrade his whole system. And, he was frantic. He had purchased the place, and it 15 years ago. And the system was new at the time. Well, it was 4 years old at the time, but I don't know, it completely broke down on them, and
Yeah.
they had to replace it all.
Right.
And he was sticker shocked.
Yep. So, that's part of why we have to present these things to the buyers. And I think this curtails us into a discussion of setting expectations as well. And that conversation goes towards your buyer clients and your seller clients. We try, when we first meet our clients in the driveway, to have what we train our inspectors to be the driveway speech, explain to them that we're going to present to them everything from little maintenance suggestions just for their awareness or prevention of bigger issues starting. And hopefully we don't find them, but we may come across some things that are older or significantly deficient and at or near the end of their service life. So maybe acknowledging some of this ahead of time, back to the question at hand, for your buyer, and or saying to your seller, listen, if there's older components here, we may need to make sure that they're serviced. We need to make sure and get a roofer out to look at that 25-year-old roof, make a couple small repairs so that we can confidently say, the the roofer gave us a letter that the roof is working fine and has X years expected useful life. And when it needs to be replaced in current dollars, it's going to cost X number of dollars, and put that on the table for the buyers to understand.
Thanks, Joe. So Dawn had a great suggestion. She said, I have recommended a home warranty when systems are nearing the end of their life, and that you can also negotiate who pays for that home warranty. So that's a great tip as well. And I have one last question here, which is the cost of the seller's inspection the same as a buyer's inspection?
Yes, it is. Long ago, over 10 years ago, we tried to do a modified, simpler seller's inspection. It didn't work out to not have it match. So honest with you, the sellers has a lot more consultation and conversation in it. It takes us a bit longer, but we keep the price the same as a buyer's inspection.
Great, thank you.
So back to the not handy scenario. The buyers came through, there was no seller's inspection. Now the buyers have their inspection. They come up with the same findings. Remember that everyone reacts differently to different situations. You may have those renegotiations. You may have people making a request to replace a furnace that is working, but is at or near the end of its service life. And otherwise, a buyer may scramble for cost estimates and proposals. And I think we all know that the majority of the time when a buyer calls a contractor, I'm in the middle of a real estate transaction, can you give me a ballpark on a furnace, or can you give me a price for the furnace? That some of those prices are going to be dramatically higher than if the seller had the opportunity to go out and get 2 or 3 different quotes, rather than it being known that it's part of a buyer's negotiation, as it may be. We also run into things like appraisal questions for things that aren't repaired. I write many letters for lenders for things that we have noted as a simple maintenance type item, like a hairline crack in a foundation, that an appraiser comes in on the 11th hour and turns into a request for an engineer to review the crack and someone to write a letter that guarantees that the crack will never leak, and all these crazy things. So again, having those addressed before that appraiser can see them would also be helpful from a different angle. Perhaps the buyers get overwhelmed with some of these findings as well. So in this case, the not handies went out and talked to some contractors to get prices. Some of them perhaps family members or friends. Their carpenter ant treatment was a bit higher than the prior. They were given a 1-year contract to come back and make sure that the carpenter ants were gone, rather than a one-time treatment with a warranty. They wanted a quote for a new roof rather than our repairs, and their estimate was elevated to $4,000. Garage door repair service was the same, excuse me. They chose to have that vanity have some mold testing and cleanup done, which was more expensive. Electrician costs were a little bit higher by estimate, and as were some of the extraneous things that they just lumped together with the number. So we were at $2,750, and in a buyer's sometimes exaggerated cost numbers, they have $8,000 to put on the table there. So obviously, these are just scenarios that could be. It's not to say that every circumstance would work out like this, or that every buyer would get these much higher prices, but this is a great example of what goes on, and I'm sure many of you have experienced some of this. Now we can talk about, again, some of these benefits of the seller's preparation, potentially overcoming some objections if you try to discuss having this done with some of those typical clients, like I said, the estate sale, or someone who's been in their house for a long time. And then we'll talk about what our seller's preparation services include. I've said it once, I'll say it again, and you all know it. A well-maintained home will stand out if there's other houses comparatively in the market. It also gives the buyer great confidence in what they're buying. We touched a little bit on disclosures. disclosing these deficiencies will take them right off of the negotiation table. Again, if you present to people how old that furnace is or that roof is, you've effectively said to them, you know, don't come asking for a new roof. I already told you that it was working and that it was 25 years old. We've seen this time and time again with our sellers, with an older roof, having an estimate and acknowledging that it's working, but there's an upcoming replacement there for them. Essentially, the goal is to close faster with less stress and perhaps for more money as well. In conversation, we've presented this for a long time, but also we've actually presented it to potential sellers in some circumstances. They may ask you, they've asked us, you know, I don't want to spend any money that I can't recover. I'll say most of this is an investment into selling their home. What is your stress level worth? What is the time on the market worth for you? And maybe perhaps you can recover some of that money in time listed, or a deal that may fall through to move on to the next one. Maybe over 30 days, you have your mortgage, your utilities. There's $2,400 right there. That's nearly the amount that the not handies sellers used to prepare their house for sale. Common question is, what happens if a buyer brings an inspector and they find different issues? My answer to that is, if the seller's preparation inspection is done well, the only thing you may find is a different opinion of an issue that's presented by another inspector, and you know, can't prevent people's opinions from being different. We're all inspecting based on the Connecticut standards, and what you find should be very similar in those circumstances. Do I have to disclose it? And we've already been through this one. Eventually, this stuff's going to come out, whether the buyers find it ahead of time with their inspection process, or you know, after they move in. It's best to have this stuff acknowledged and addressed, and have the seller control that information ahead of time rather than in the heat of the transaction. Another one is, I can't afford to fix anything. Why am I bothering with this process? Well, again, some of these little things can be addressed by a homeowner. Most importantly, you don't have to fix all this stuff. You can simply control that situation, have that knowledge. Like it says here, knowledge is power, and give you the control to go get prices for those things. What does it cost to put a water heater in? Well, you can go ahead and get like appliances versus maybe a buyer who wants to take that electric water heater and their contractor wants to put in one of the new energy efficient heat pump electric water heaters instead. That bumps the price up. What can the seller do? We've already touched on this. Obtain multiple repair quotes, present them, or go ahead and repair. Decide between repairing and disclosure, and most importantly, provide historical information to inform buyers of what may or may not have occurred in the past. In our seller's preparation, it is a full home inspection, meaning it's the same as a buyer's inspection. We also include the wood destroying insect inspection as well. That's a full separate report. We also, when people want it, will provide a binder to organize all of these things. So their receipts from services, anything that they fixed, the seller's preparation report is often used as a tool. Many people actually will take them and just ink over it, cross out things that they've addressed, put dates on it, staple receipts to it. These are all signs of a proactive seller when a buyer gets a hold of this. One of my favorite seller's preparation stories, I call it the Post-it family. They had a huge granite island in their kitchen, and we sat down to review and summarize the report at the end of the inspection. And they literally took the Post-it notes out and were scribbling the items down, who was going to take care of it, the husband, the wife, and sticking the Post-it note to the counter. And there were circumstances there, such as 2 pieces of radon mitigation equipment that were no longer functioning. The fan had died on the radon air system. The radon water bubbler was loud, so they had unplugged it years ago when using exercise equipment in the basement and completely forgotten about it. And the circumstances went on and on. You know, it's a busy family, a beautiful larger home, and they just needed to catch up on a few things to get it ready for sale. So, lastly, one of the things that we will provide if people are interested is a yard sign expressing that the house has been inspected and is ready for sale. Any questions come in, Kara?
I don't have any additional questions at this time.
All right. Some of the things that we can provide to you after the presentation today is a seller's preparation inspection flyer. It's going to be emailed to you. This is a great tool for you if you think you like to use this for your listings or you have sellers that are interested. You can print this. We can provide it in print if you want to reply to the email as well in a nice glossy 8.5 by 11. But it goes through all the things that we talked about today and how a seller can benefit from this service. The next one, I talked about setting expectations for both buyers and sellers. It's something that we try to do to get over that hump of to get back to finding something that's significantly deficient and or at or near the end of its service life. How do we set the expectation for buyers? How do we set the expectations for sellers? Things, what's going to happen on inspection day. This is another little flyer, a great tool for you to use to have a checklist for discussion with both buyer and seller clients to prepare them. Simple things like what's changed in our world. Well, a lot of sellers might be working from home, so we do have more sellers that are home on inspection day. Explain to them that it's a little bit of an invasive process. The inspector is going to be in your house for more than 2 hours. They're going to be running all the water fixtures, dishwasher. They're going to be testing GFIs. People that are in their office, home office perhaps, and listening to a tub drain and a toilet get flushed and lights going on and off tend to get a little bit wound up or anxious. So explaining to them that these things are going to go on is helpful. How can you help your clients choose a home inspection company? Well, one of the things we talk about is the first bullet says fully licensed on it. It's important to understand that to get a home inspection license in Connecticut, there is an intern process. We have to apply for an intern license. We have to do 100 inspections underneath a supervisor, and then we have to pass a national home inspection exam. You can't get your intern permit until you take a 40-hour course, not unlike your realtor course. You can, however, run your business for an unlimited amount of time on that intern permit and never get a successful home inspection license. So it's important for clients to figure out who is running on an intern permit or has completed their licensing process. Touch on insurance quickly. Insurance is not required in the state of Connecticut for home inspectors. That is somewhat shocking to many. As a responsible business, we carry both errors and omissions insurance, liability insurance. If something's damaged on a property, you know, what happens when somebody's ladder blows onto the seller's car. And of course, because we have employees, we have workers' compensation insurance. These are all important things for your buyers to be aware of, but also some of those apply to your sellers being aware of. We picked up an inspection a few weeks ago on a short term. In other words, they needed someone out there literally that afternoon because the seller had requested proof of insurance and licensing, and the inspector that arrived did not have a full license and did not have insurance. So they quickly called us to get out there and do the inspection. So it does exist out there in the market, and buyers should be aware that there's a lot more to talk about than just price when they're looking for a home inspector. Customer service is important. We have our office staffed from 8 to 8 every weekday. 8 to 6 on Saturday and 6 hours on Sunday as well. So we're available. We know you all are working long hours and through the weekends. Your clients can get in touch with us. You can get in touch with us for scheduling or information purposes. Sue went through some of the optional tests that we have. We've chosen to have specific staff members who focus on these environmental tests for radon and water testing. This way they can all stay up to speed, trained, nationally certified for each of these things, and our clients will get accurate tests that are done appropriately and efficiently. Frankly, we can get the results quicker. We all carry the licensing to perform the insect inspections. We mentioned 30 years. This year is our anniversary. With that comes a lot of experience with doing these presentations, what used to be more commonly in your offices. I get to learn a lot of what you all go through. Many of your questions and feedback and stories are very helpful. We can relay that to our staff to understand what buyers and sellers and realtors go through in this transaction process to make sure that our staff stays up to speed on that. And on to the gift certificate. Sue or Kara, do you want to take care of this?
Yep, we do have a winner. Before I mention the winner, I want to let you guys know we are very excited. Next month, we are having a 3-part new agent training series. So it's going to be 3 weeks in a row. So if, look out for that, or if you know of any new agents that might benefit from that series, let us know. And the winner is Mike, Mr. Z. Congratulations.
Thank you for attending, Mike.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thanks for the information.
You're welcome. Does anyone have any further questions?
We're just getting a lot of thank yous. Our contact information is here. You can reach all 3 of us. And of course, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and this will be posted on YouTube with all of our other programs. And don't forget to visit our website promotions page for our great February promotion, $30 off inspections and $30 off your radon, because Tiger is celebrating 30 years commitment and service to the real estate industry in Connecticut. Thanks, everybody.
It
Thank
was
you, everyone,
very
for coming.
informal. Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy the afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending.